Mortgage fraud. Two words that could send Kody and Robyn Brown from their comfortable Flagstaff mansion straight into a federal courtroom. The bombshell dropped like a grenade into the Sister Wives fandom, and the shrapnel is still flying. After years of financial secrecy, carefully constructed narratives, and a plural marriage structure that conveniently bent the rules whenever it suited them, the Browns are finally facing the kind of scrutiny they never anticipated. And folks, the person who lit the fuse on this powder keg is none other than Meri Brown, the original legal wife who spent decades being pushed aside, diminished, and treated like an afterthought by the very people now scrambling to contain the damage she allegedly caused. Sources close to the situation are describing the atmosphere around Kody and Robyn as absolutely toxic right now. One insider put it bluntly, saying they are in full panic mode and pointing fingers at everyone except themselves. The allegations swirling around their Flagstaff property dealings are not minor paperwork errors or innocent misunderstandings. We are talking about potentially falsifying marital status on mortgage applications, misrepresenting income sources, and exploiting the legal gray areas of their unconventional family structure in ways that could constitute federal crimes. Let that sink in for a moment. The family that built their brand on transparency, on showing America the real lives of a plural family, may have been hiding financial deception that reaches back years. The irony here is absolutely staggering. Kody Brown has spent over a decade on television lecturing viewers about the principles of his lifestyle, defending polygamy as a valid family structure, and positioning himself as the patriarch of a loving, unified household. Yet behind the scenes, that same family structure was apparently being manipulated for financial advantage in ways that would make any mortgage lender's head spin. You cannot claim to be single on a legal document while simultaneously pooling income from multiple wives to qualify for properties you could never afford alone. That is not creative accounting, that is fraud. What makes this situation even more explosive is the paper trail. Sister Wives fans, those dedicated investigators who have been tracking the Browns' every move for years, have been digging through public property records in Flagstaff. And what they have discovered paints a picture that Kody and Robyn desperately did not want the world to see. Multiple properties purchased under circumstances that raised serious red flags, applications that allegedly misrepresented financial realities, a pattern of behavior that spans years and multiple transactions. One fan investigator noted that the documents tell a story that directly contradicts everything they have said publicly about their finances. But understanding the full scope of this scandal requires context. This exposure did not happen overnight. The pieces have been falling into place for months, and Meri's role in accelerating the revelation adds a layer of betrayal that has reportedly sent Robyn into what insiders are describing as an unhinged crash out. The question everyone is asking is whether Meri knew exactly what she was doing, or whether this was truly accidental. And the answer to that question could determine the future of every relationship in what remains of the Brown family. Sister Wives fans have never been passive observers. From the very first episode, viewers recognized that something did not quite add up about the Browns' financial situation. How does a family of this size, with one working husband and multiple stay-at-home wives, afford massive homes in multiple states? How do they maintain separate households, pay for weddings, support adult children, and live the lifestyle they displayed on camera without some creative financial maneuvering? The suspicions have been brewing for over a decade, and now those suspicions are being validated in ways that nobody anticipated. The legal structure of the Brown family has always existed in a carefully maintained gray area. Kody was legally married to Meri for years, making her the only wife with official legal status. The other wives, Janelle, Christine, and eventually Robyn, were spiritual wives with no legal recognition. This arrangement was not accidental, it was strategic. By maintaining only one legal marriage, the Browns could position themselves as single mothers for government benefits, tax advantages, and yes, mortgage applications. One former associate of the family described it as a system designed to extract maximum financial benefit while minimizing legal accountability. When Kody divorced Meri to legally marry Robyn in 2014, the official reason given was to facilitate the adoption of Robyn's children from her previous marriage. And while that explanation satisfied casual viewers, those paying closer attention noted that the switch also transferred all the legal and financial advantages of being Kody's official wife to Robyn. Suddenly, Robyn had access to protections, property rights, and financial instruments that the other wives did not. The move was presented as a sacrifice by Meri, but insiders now suggest it was orchestrated primarily for financial benefit. The Flagstaff era of Sister Wives marked a dramatic escalation in the family's property dealings. After fleeing Las Vegas in what the family claimed was a response to changing attitudes toward polygamy, they purchased land at Coyote Pass and began acquiring individual homes. The purchases happened rapidly, the prices were substantial, and the income streams supporting these transactions were murky at best. Fans began documenting discrepancies almost immediately. How could Robyn and Kody afford a home valued at nearly $900,000 when Kody's only visible income was the television show? The math simply did not work unless there were financial arrangements happening behind the scenes that viewers were not privy to. What has emerged from public records is deeply troubling. Reports suggest that applications may have listed inaccurate marital status information, potentially claiming single status while actually benefiting from pooled family resources. Income declarations may have been inflated or misrepresented. The complex web of spiritual marriages and shared finances created opportunities for deception that mortgage companies were ill-equipped to detect. According to those familiar with mortgage lending practices, this is textbook fraud, and lenders have been known to pursue legal action years after the fact when these discrepancies come to light. The question that has captivated fans is not whether something improper occurred. The evidence suggesting misconduct is mounting daily. The real question is how deep the deception goes and who bears ultimate responsibility. And that brings us back to Meri, the woman who spent 30 years building a life with Kody, only to watch him transfer his legal commitment to Robyn and slowly frees her out of the family entirely. Her role in exposing these alleged financial crimes may not have been intentional, but the timing and circumstances suggest something more complicated than a simple accident. The exposure began quietly, almost imperceptibly. Meri Brown, who has maintained an active social media presence despite her estrangement from Kody and Robyn, started dropping hints that fans initially dismissed as typical post-separation venting. Cryptic posts about truth eventually surfacing, references to karma and accountability, comments about financial arrangements that seemed designed to provoke questions without providing answers. Looking back now, longtime observers believe Meri was laying breadcrumbs that led directly to the fraud allegations currently engulfing her former sister wife and ex-husband. Sources claim that Meri provided specific information to individuals who then connected the dots with publicly available property records. Whether she handed over documents, confirmed suspicions, or simply pointed investigators in the right direction remains unclear. But multiple insiders have confirmed that without Meri's involvement, the connections between the various property transactions and their potentially fraudulent foundations would not have been made. One source close to Meri stated that she finally decided she was done protecting people who never protected her. The timing of this exposure is particularly significant. Meri officially separated from the family after years of being marginalized, humiliated, and essentially abandoned by Kody while remaining technically married. She watched as resources were funneled toward Robyn while she was expected to contribute financially without receiving emotional or practical support in return. The resentment built slowly, invisibly, until something finally snapped. Whether that breaking point came from a specific incident or simply accumulated years of mistreatment, the result is the same. Meri stopped staying silent. Fans who have followed Meri's journey noted the shift in her social media tone over the past year. Posts that once seemed sadly resigned became sharper, more pointed. She began liking comments from fans criticizing Kody and Robyn. She shared quotes about betrayal and consequences that seemed to carry double meanings. One particularly telling post referenced the idea that secrets have a way of becoming public, and those who keep them should prepare for the fallout. At the time, fans speculated she was referring to her own catfishing scandal from years earlier. Now, that interpretation seems naive. The question of intent haunts this entire situation. Did Meri deliberately expose potential mortgage fraud as revenge against the family that discarded her? Or did information slip out accidentally during conversations where her guard was down? Those close to her are divided. Some believe Meri would never intentionally cause legal trouble for anyone, regardless of how they treated her. Others point to years of accumulated grievances and suggest that Meri knew exactly what she was doing and chose to let the chips fall where they may. Let us be brutally honest here. After everything Kody and Robyn put her through, would anyone really blame her if this exposure was deliberate? What we do know is that Robyn received word that information connecting their property dealings had become public, and her reaction was immediate, visceral, and according to those who witnessed it, completely unhinged. The woman who has spent years cultivating an image as the gentle, reasonable wife apparently showed a very different side when she realized the implications of what Meri had done, whether intentionally or not. Unhinged. That is the word insiders keep using to describe Robyn Brown's reaction when she learned that potentially incriminating financial information had reached the public domain. Multiple sources paint a picture of a woman who completely lost control, cycling between rage, panic, and desperate attempts at damage control. One person who spoke with someone present during the initial fallout fallout described it as a total meltdown, unlike anything they had witnessed before. The carefully constructed image of Robyn as the calm, mature, favored wife apparently evaporated the moment her financial security came under threat. According to reports, Robyn's first response was to blame Kody. Sources close to the situation say she accused him of putting them in this position through years of reckless financial decisions. She allegedly demanded to know why proper precautions were not taken, why their vulnerability was allowed to grow, and why nobody anticipated that a scorned ex-wife might eventually expose their arrangements. The confrontation was reportedly explosive, with shouting that neighbors could hear and accusations that cut to the core of their marriage. For a couple that has positioned themselves as the stable foundation while the other marriages crumbled, this private chaos represents a dramatic contrast. But Robyn's fury was not reserved solely for Kody. Sources indicate that she attempted to contact Meri directly, though accounts differ on whether actual communication occurred. Some reports suggest a heated phone call where Robyn allegedly accused Meri of deliberate sabotage and threatened legal action. Others claim Meri refused all contact, leaving Robyn to spiral without the confrontation she desperately wanted. Regardless of whether they spoke, the relationship between these two women, already damaged beyond repair, has now entered territory that makes reconciliation impossible. What makes Robyn's reaction particularly revealing is how it contradicts years of on-camera behavior. She has always positioned herself as the innocent party, the wife who tried to keep peace, the woman who simply wanted to love Kody without causing problems. Yet when faced with potential legal consequences, that facade cracked instantly. Insiders describe a woman consumed by self-preservation, more concerned about protecting her assets than addressing whether the underlying allegations have merit. One source noted that not once did she express concern about how this might affect the children or the family. It was entirely about herself and Kody. The blame shifting toward Meri has been particularly aggressive. According to those familiar with the private communications, Robyn has reportedly told confidants that Meri is motivated purely by jealousy and spite. She allegedly framed the exposure as an attack on her children's security, conveniently ignoring that the alleged fraud itself would be the actual cause of any instability. The narrative Robyn is pushing privately paints herself as the victim of a vindictive ex-wife, rather than someone potentially facing consequences for their own financial misconduct. Allow me to translate that for you. Robyn is more upset about being caught than about anything she may have done. The crash out has reportedly continued for weeks. Friends and family members describe Robyn as alternating between fury and depression, unable to process the reality of her situation. She has allegedly become increasingly isolated, trusting fewer people with information about the ongoing crisis. Her social media activity has dropped dramatically, suggesting awareness that anything she posts could be scrutinized. The woman who once seemed so confident in her position as Kody's only remaining wife now appears to be questioning everything, including whether that position was ever as secure as she believed. The pressure cooker that is Kody and Robyn's marriage has been building for years, but the fraud allegations have reportedly cranked the heat to unbearable levels. Sources describe a household where tension permeates every interaction, where financial stress has combined with legal fear to create an atmosphere that is utterly toxic. The couple that viewers watched essentially win the competition for Kody's attention is now discovering that their prize may come with federal fraud charges attached. Money problems are nothing new for the Brown family. Throughout Sister Wives' run, financial stress was a recurring theme. Whether it was the questionable decision to leave Las Vegas, the chaotic Coyote Pass purchase, or the constant juggling of resources between households. But those issues, while significant, did not carry the threat of prison time. The current situation is fundamentally different. Legal experts who have analyzed the public information suggest that if fraud is proven, both Kody and Robyn could face serious consequences. That kind of existential threat changes everything about a relationship. Insiders report that the arguments between Kody and Robyn have become increasingly bitter as each attempts to establish who bears primary responsibility. Robyn allegedly maintains that she trusted Kody to handle financial matters properly and should not be held accountable for his decisions. Kody reportedly counters that Robyn was a full participant in the property purchases and cannot claim ignorance. The circular blame game has reportedly reached the point where productive conversation is impossible. One source described their communications as two people trying to position themselves as the primary victim while preparing to throw the other under the bus if necessary. Fan theories about what Robyn knew and when have proliferated across social media. Some believe she was kept in the dark by Kody, unaware of the specific details of their mortgage applications. Others point to her business background and involvement in family financial decisions as evidence that she must have understood what was happening. The truth likely lies somewhere in between, with willful ignorance possibly playing a role in allowing both parties to maintain deniability. But as any lawyer will tell you, not asking questions you do not want answered does not provide legal protection. The strain is reportedly manifesting in ways visible even to casual observers. The couple's rare public appearances have shown increased tension in their body language. Their carefully coordinated social media presence has faltered. Friends report that Robyn has made comments suggesting she regrets certain decisions without specifying which ones. The fairy tale ending she orchestrated by becoming Kody's only legal wife now feels more like the beginning of a nightmare. Let that sink in for a moment. She fought so hard to be the last wife standing, and now that position may lead to her sharing a defense attorney with the man who promised her everything. What makes this situation particularly poignant is the contrast with where Kody and Robyn expected to be at this stage. They planned for a life free of the other wives' drama, focused on their children and their relationship. Instead, they are reportedly consulting lawyers, reviewing old documents, and trying to prepare for scenarios that could include criminal prosecution. The irony of the chosen wife facing consequences that the discarded wives will escape has not been lost on fans, and the other ex-wives have reportedly taken notice of this reversal of fortune. Christine Brown is thriving. That reality sits in stark contrast to the chaos currently consuming Kody and Robyn, and the visual disparity has not escaped anyone's notice. Since leaving Kody, Christine has launched successful business ventures, found a new loving relationship, reconnected with her children on deeper levels, and generally radiated the happiness of someone who escaped a suffocating situation. Her social media is filled with genuine smiles, family gatherings, and evidence of a woman living her best life. And as the fraud allegations swirl around her former husband and his favorite wife, Christine has maintained a notable silence that speaks volumes. Sources close to Christine report that she has been following the developments with what one friend described as vindicated fascination. After years of feeling marginalized, undervalued, and financially squeezed within the family, watching Kody and Robyn face accountability for their financial arrangements reportedly brings a sense of cosmic justice. She has allegedly told confidants that she always knew their finances did not add up, but felt powerless to challenge the arrangements while still part of the family. Now, seeing those arrangements potentially exposed as fraudulent, she feels her suspicions were validated. Janelle Brown's response has been more measured but equally telling. The former wife, who prided herself on being the family's financial manager, has reportedly distanced herself completely from any connection to the Flagstaff property dealings. Sources indicate she has consulted her own legal counsel to ensure that any financial decisions made during her marriage cannot create liability for her now. One insider noted that Janelle is being very careful to establish that she was not involved in these specific transactions and had no knowledge of any irregularities. The question of whether Christine or Janelle could face any legal exposure from the family's financial past has generated significant discussion. Legal analysts suggest that unless they were signatories on the specific applications or directly participated in misrepresentations, their liability would be minimal. The spiritual wife arrangement that once disadvantaged them legally may now serve as protection. They were not legal partners, not co-signers, not formally connected to Kody in ways that would make them responsible for his financial decisions. The very marginalization they experienced may now shield them. Social media evidence of the ex-wives distancing themselves has been abundant. Neither Christine nor Janelle has publicly commented on the fraud allegations, but their silence is strategic. They have stopped engaging with posts about Kody and Robyn, removed old photos that included the embattled couple, and generally conducted themselves as though that chapter of their lives is completely closed. Friends report both women are focused exclusively on their own futures with no interest in being dragged into the Brown family scandal even as spectators. The contrast could not be more striking. Christine and Janelle left a situation that many criticized as an escape from their family responsibilities. Instead, they escaped what is now revealed to be a financial house of cards built on potentially fraudulent foundations. The wives who walked away are free and thriving. The wife who stayed and schemed is facing potential legal consequences. Sometimes the universe has a way of delivering exactly what people deserve, and longtime Sister Wives viewers are watching this karma unfold with undisguised satisfaction. If there is one thing Sister Wives fans excel at beyond loyal viewership, it is investigation. These are not casual observers scrolling past headlines. These are dedicated researchers who have spent years cataloging every property purchase, cross-referencing public records, analyzing social media posts for clues, and building comprehensive timelines of the Brown family's financial financial activities. When the fraud allegations emerged, these amateur forensic accountants were already armed with years of documentation, ready to connect dots that even professionals might miss. The investigation began gaining momentum on Reddit communities and Facebook groups dedicated to sister wives analysis. Users started sharing property records from Coconino County, highlighting purchase prices, listed owners, and the timing of transactions that seemed suspicious. Mortgage information, while partially protected, still contains publicly available details that raised immediate red flags. One particularly thorough investigator compiled a spreadsheet comparing declared income on known tax documents with the property values being purchased, demonstrating what they called an impossible financial equation. The crowdsourced investigation has produced genuinely impressive results. Fans identified discrepancies between what the Browns claimed on camera about their living situations and what official records showed. They discovered properties purchased in arrangements that seemed designed to obscure ownership. They found evidence of rapid refinancing that suggested attempts to extract equity in ways that might not withstand scrutiny. One investigator who works in mortgage lending professionally stated that if even half of what the documents suggest is accurate, there are serious violations that any reasonable lender would pursue. Online communities have become repositories of evidence, with users adding new discoveries daily. Screenshots of relevant social media posts are archived before they can be deleted. Property transfer records are saved and shared. Interviews and podcast appearances where the Browns discussed finances are transcribed and analyzed for inconsistencies. The level of organization is remarkable, with some communities maintaining wikis dedicated to tracking every known financial transaction associated with the family. Word on the street among these investigators is that they have barely scratched the surface of what is available. The question of whether this fan pressure could lead to actual legal investigation is increasingly relevant. While ordinary citizens cannot bring fraud charges, they can file complaints with relevant authorities. Reports have emerged that fans have submitted information to the FBI's mortgage fraud tip line, to Arizona state regulators, and to the lending institutions involved in the Browns' property purchases. Whether these agencies will act remains unclear, but the sheer volume of documented evidence ensures that any investigator who does take an interest will have substantial material to work with. The phenomenon of fans becoming investigators reflects broader cultural shifts in how audiences engage with reality television. No longer content to simply watch, viewers now participate actively in holding subjects accountable. The Browns built their brand on supposed transparency, inviting cameras into their lives and asking audiences to accept their narrative at face value. Now those same audiences are using the information they were given to construct a very different story, one that the family never intended to tell. Let us be brutally clear about what Kody and Robyn Brown are potentially facing. Mortgage fraud is not a minor offense dismissed with a fine and a stern warning. It is a federal crime that prosecutors take seriously, particularly in cases involving substantial property values and apparent patterns of deception. If the allegations circulating prove accurate, the consequences could reshape their lives in ways that their reality television fame will do nothing to prevent. Federal mortgage fraud charges can carry penalties of up to 30 years in prison and fines of up to $1 million per violation. While first-time offenders rarely receive maximum sentences, even reduced penalties would be devastating. 5 years in federal prison is not uncommon for proven mortgage fraud cases. Civil forfeiture of properties obtained through fraudulent means is standard. Financial restitution to defrauded lenders can bankrupt defendants for life. These are not theoretical consequences designed to frighten. They are routine outcomes in cases that go to prosecution. Reference to similar celebrity cases provides sobering context. Teresa and Joe Giudice of Real Housewives of New Jersey fame faced federal charges for bank and wire fraud that included falsifying mortgage applications. Joe served over 3 years in prison before being deported. Teresa served nearly a year herself. Their case demonstrated that reality television fame provides no immunity from prosecution and may actually increase scrutiny from authorities who view celebrities as examples. The parallel to Kody and Robyn's situation has not escaped legal analysts, with one noting that prosecutors love high-profile cases because they deter others from similar conduct. TLC's involvement in the Brown family finances creates additional complications. Production companies often provide advances, guaranteed payments, and financial arrangements that can blur lines between income and production expenses. If the network's payments were misrepresented on mortgage applications, either inflated to qualify for loans or concealed to appear less wealthy, TLC itself could become entangled in the investigation. This creates incentive for the network to distance itself from the Browns, potentially threatening the continued existence of Sister Wives itself. According to to those familiar with television production deals, networks do not appreciate being dragged into legal proceedings that could expose their financial arrangements to discovery. The show's future already seemed uncertain before these allegations emerged. Sister Wives has been on the air for years, with ratings declining as the family dynamic shifted from plural marriage to single remaining couple. Without the other wives providing narrative tension, the show has struggled to maintain viewer interest. Add in the current scandal, and TLC executives are reportedly evaluating whether continuing the program is worth the reputational risk. The income stream that Kody and Robyn have relied upon to support their lifestyle may be ending precisely when they need it most to pay legal bills. Regardless of whether prosecutors ultimately file charges, the investigation alone will be expensive and stressful. Legal fees for mortgage fraud defense can reach hundreds of thousands of dollars. The uncertainty can drag on for years as authorities investigate. The public nature of their situation means any proceedings will be covered extensively by media. Their children will grow up with these allegations as part of their family history. The court of public opinion requires no investigation, no evidence threshold, and no presumption of innocence. It has already rendered its verdict on Kody and Robyn Brown, and that verdict is devastating. Scroll through any Sister Wives comment section, fan forum, or social media discussion, and you will find near universal condemnation. The couple that positioned themselves as the survivors of the Brown family implosion are now viewed as the architects of its moral collapse. The family that built their brand on supposed transparency has been drowning in secrets, and those secrets are finally surfacing. For years, Kody and Robyn presented themselves as the reasonable parties, while the other wives were portrayed as difficult, demanding, or disloyal. Now the narrative has completely reversed. Christine's departure looks like wisdom rather than abandonment. Janelle's distance seems prescient rather than cold. Meri's years of mistreatment appear even more unjust, knowing that she was supporting a household built on potentially fraudulent foundations. The irony of the current situation would be almost poetic if it were not so genuinely damaging to everyone involved. Robyn fought relentlessly to be Kody's primary focus, to push the other wives to the margins, to consolidate resources and attention on herself and her children. She achieved everything she wanted, and that achievement may now result in legal consequences that the marginalized wives will entirely escape. She wanted to be the center of Kody's world. Now she is the center of an investigation. Be careful what you wish for, indeed. Kody's role in this situation reflects the fundamental dishonesty that characterized his patriarchy from the beginning. He claimed to love all his wives equally while blatantly favoring Robyn. He demanded sacrifice from women he was unwilling to support. He expected loyalty he did not return. Now, the same attitude that allowed him to mistreat his wives apparently extended to financial institutions and legal requirements. Rules applied to everyone except Kody Brown, until suddenly they applied very directly. The question that viewers cannot stop debating is whether Meri exposed them on purpose or whether this was truly accidental. Did years of accumulated grievances finally overflow into deliberate revelation? Or did information slip out through carelessness that merely appeared calculated? The answer matters to the dynamics involved, but perhaps not to the ultimate outcome. Either way, the truth emerged. Either way, Kody and Robyn must face what that truth reveals. What happens next remains uncertain, but certain outcomes seem inevitable. The Brown family, as viewers knew it, is finished. The remaining relationship between Kody and Robyn may not survive the pressure of potential prosecution. The children from all the marriages will process their parents' choices for years to come, and millions of viewers who invested years in this family's story will watch the final chapters unfold with the fascination that only genuine accountability can provide. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Meri knew exactly what she was doing, or was this truly an accident? Share your theory, because this story is far from over and the updates will keep coming as long as there is truth left to expose.